but it did feel like it was a constant barrage of rejection.
I think there was a day where I dared you to put Swiftie in your headline.
Yeah, and I did.
Hi, and welcome to my podcast, But Is It Legal? I'm Simon Marshall. I'm the founder of a legal marketing agency called TBD Marketing. We've been around for 6 years now, and today I'm joined by the one and only Emma Geale, who is a principal associate based in Cambridge at Mills Reeve. Emma is step qualified and she works in the private client team advising on succession planning issues, amongst other things. She first came to my notice as a result of her extraordinary run of form on LinkedIn over the last 12 weeks or so, where I think, Emma, it's right in saying that you rose from 175th place up to 21st place in the course of that kind of 12-week period. We're going to hear more about that as well as we go through. But Emma, welcome.
Thank you.
And would it be okay for us to hear a bit more about your practice, your LinkedIn journey? But first, I wondered if you can tell us a bit about, tell us a bit about your practice and tell us a bit about how you came to the law in the first place.
Yeah, of course. So as you say, I'm a private client lawyer, so I advise on estate planning and tax and things like that. Principally high net worth individuals with a kind of focus on business owners and entrepreneurs and people like that. And I also do a lot of work using corporate vehicles for long-term succession planning, wealth preservation and things like that, and a bit of complex trust work as well. So I've got quite a wide variety of clients in addition to the business owners and people like entertainment, people in the entertainment sector, people in the land and estates sector, things like that. So there's quite a lot of different people I act for.
But you're at that intersection really between the kind of the B2B part of the business and the B2C part of the business.
Yeah, definitely. So most of my clients are the individuals, so we're talking B2C, but a lot of those people have businesses behind them. So we kind of Mills Reeve are quite well placed to advise on both the personal side and the corporate side. So I work very closely with our corporate team or real estate team who are acting for the businesses, but then I do work for the individuals and kind of tying those bits together and making sure the kind of business advice ties in with what the personal situation is, particularly when you're talking about tax, which can be quite a big kind of game changer when you're talking about structuring companies.
Tell me a bit about how you came to choose to come to work in the legal sector in the first place. What was the tipping point? What made you decide I want to be a lawyer?
Good question. So I wasn't the kind of the child who wanted to one day to be a lawyer, and I didn't have any kind of role models in the legal sector growing up. So it wasn't really something I had kind of aspired to for a long time. I think for me, it was a slow process. So when I was starting to look at what to do at college, sixth form, and what A levels to do, I went to an open day to the law A level. I thought it sounded really interesting. So I was like, cool, I'll give that a go. Choose things that you find interesting rather than, something that's necessarily putting you on a predetermined path. Which is quite funny to look back because I almost didn't keep doing more because of the scheduling conflict. So thinking back now to 16-year-old me making the decision to do a law A level versus whatever other A level it conflicted with, what different position I'd be in now if I'd taken something else rather than law. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the law A level. And kind of the next natural progression was to do a law degree. So I applied to universities to do that. And then once I was there, kept enjoying it. Okay, I applied for VAC schemes, training contracts, and kind of the rest is history, I suppose.
Did you do a VAC scheme at Mills Reeve then in the first place?
I did, yeah. So I applied for a couple of years worth of rounds of training contract applications. And in the second year of my applying, which is the end of my third year of uni, I did the VAC scheme at Mills Reeve, which was here in Cambridge. I'd actually never been to Cambridge before I came to the assessment centre. Lived here for 2 weeks. And then now I'm almost 10 years into working at Mills Reeve. So it's a bit of a crazy, situation where I've never actually been here before. But next thing you know, this is my life.
It's amazing, really. It's a beautiful city. Have you fallen in love with the city since you've been there?
Oh, definitely. So even in the 2 weeks I was here, the office was so warm and everyone was so lovely, which is the case across M&R generally, but everyone was so welcoming. It was such a nice experience being here. We went punting one evening on the VAC scheme and just enjoying Cambridge life. So, I was kind of set on Cambridge from then because I'd originally applied to the Birmingham office because I was at uni there. So after the VAC scheme, they were like, well, what do you fancy, Cambridge or Birmingham? And Cambridge won it for me.
Yeah, I've lived near Birmingham when I was a kid, and I'm sure I would have chosen Cambridge as well. So there we go. I know both cities. They've both got their advantages as well. But I do understand that punting in Birmingham maybe not quite the option
Yeah,
in
exactly.
Cambridge. So
I enjoyed Birmingham City. I was there for 4 years with undergrad and then the LPC. But I think I was ready for kind of the next stage of life. And rather than the kind of student city living, actually having something a bit slower paced. I love Cambridge and everything that's going on here. It's got a great foodie scene, all that sort of stuff. So it really works for me.
good to hear. Tell me a bit about, if it's okay, tell me a bit about kind of what parents or family did. And you said that you're not somebody who's got like lawyers around you necessarily. You didn't have that influence in your life. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. So my dad grew up in a farming family and worked in a agricultural sales business.
Right.
Just as kind of a parts manager, so working with people a lot, but not necessarily kind of lots of qualifications and that sort of thing. And then my mum worked when I was growing up in my local college. It's actually the college that I went to,
Amazing.
which was just in their finance team as an accounting technician, so doing all their kind of purchase ledger stuff. So I had some work experience there. When I was kind of 16 or something, and then did my A levels there because I found it quite kind of a comfortable environment. So it wasn't the best college in the area, but for me, it was kind of the smaller, big fish, small pond rather than small fish, big pond sort of vibe. So I quite liked that.
But you didn't give a vibe that it was like necessarily a difficult choice. It sounded like something you chose to do. And then was it a difficult decision to choose to be a lawyer, or was it something? I mean, you
No,
had
I think I don't
support.
really ever remember a situation where I said, "Oh, actually, I'm going to be a lawyer." It just kind of happened and felt like natural progression, which I'm
Right.
sure my mum remembers a time when I was like, well, "I'm going to do this now," because she was very helpful in doing all my millions of training contracts applications over the years. Um, I've definitely got her to thank for proofreading all of those and dealing with a probably quite aggy teenage me trying to go through this. But yeah, it just kind of happened in some ways.
And then you did the kind of seat rotation at Mills Reeve and stuff, and something made you settle on private client. What was it that leapt out for you about working in that team that made you think that's what I want to do for a living?
So I kind of had an inclination that I would enjoy private client work. So we'd had some kind of personal things going on in the family where we'd had to deal with solicitors in private client context. So it's one area of the profession that I had seen from the outside world, and that was only while I was at uni. It wasn't kind of any earlier than that, but it kind of was something that is a bit more tangible, I suppose, as someone from outside the legal sector, that individuals need this sort of advice, whereas you don't necessarily get exposure to kind of big mergers and acquisitions type transactions. So I was quite keen to do private client seat when I joined. Had to push a little bit hard because it was quite a small team at the time, and they just had an NQ. So actually having an NQ and a trainee at the same time wasn't a foregone conclusion. But I did the seat, and it was just perfect for me. So I did that as my third seat, and I would do 6 seats. So that was kind of the last bit of my first year as a trainee. And from then, I was just set on that was what I wanted to do. And so then, a year later, I came back to the private client team to do a run-in seat before qualifying in the September. And actually, from that perspective, it all kind of went quite smoothly. So, I knew I wanted to do private client seat. I did the private client seat. I managed to get a qualification job there, and that all kind of went quite well.
That's here. Any thoughts, if you just think about that as your milestone, so getting through kind of studying at A-level degree and then into kind of getting through the training contract, any thoughts or reflections that be of use to people who were coming up to that period in their life, maybe who are 17, 18 now, maybe who are going through their degree, any reflections for them?
Yeah, I think definitely the perseverance of applying for training contracts and back schemes. As I said, I did a couple of years worth of trying to get a place on a training contract. I did a few back schemes. I got to a couple of final interviews, but it did feel like it was a constant barrage of rejection.
Right.
So it was, when I finally got there, I felt fantastic, but it was definitely felt like a very long journey. So I think the perseverance is quite key. If it's something that you want to do, keep at it, and hopefully it'll work out eventually. So, for some people, they get a training contract straight out of uni. Some people, it takes a longer time paralegaling for a bit. And I think these days there's so many different people at different stages of their lives starting on their legal journey. So, I think don't feel like you're going to be behind if you don't start training contract until your late 20s, early 30s, or even later. It is a lot more diverse profession now. So
I think that tenacity as well that we observe in people who do really want to do it and just sticking to it, strangely, is one of the skills that you need when you're a lawyer anyway, right? You need to have some sticking power and gumption about it. Is that a fair observation, do you think?
yeah, definitely. And I think for me, I applied to lots of different firms, different shapes and sizes, from smaller regional firms to big city firms, international firms. I think just finding the right fit for you. So everything felt very easy at Mills Reeve, and it just kind of happened. And that was obviously the right fit for me in the long run. So I think just finding your place. But then at the same time, if you get a spot somewhere and it isn't the right place for you, obviously you can move on. I've been quite happy at Mills Reeve. It's a great firm, great people, great work, that sort of thing. So I'm very happy staying put. But I've got other friends who have moved around a bit because wherever they started out wasn't where they were meant to end up. So there's no kind of problem with that either.
No, I think that's right. I think it's more flexible than it was when I first started out in the legal sector 25 years ago. And I think there's no shame in kind of making the right decision for you at the right phase of your career. I think that's one of the big advances we've made. But you're a lovely example of somebody who's been at the firm clearly 10, 12 years now as well, and found her home immediately as well. I was thinking this. Your mum clearly helped out, a support system helping with the kind of application process and proofreading and stuff as well. Anyone else who you'd like to highlight as really having kind of helped, maybe inspired you or helped you out through your career? Anyone else in particular stand out?
So I think in terms of within the firm, so my boss, line manager, a guy called Chris Belcher, is incredible. He has been kind of the person I've been working with since my days as a trainee, and ever since. I did just joke with him that he's been putting up with me for almost 10 years. So it's been.
Is he a Taylor Swift fan? That's what we need to know, right? Is he? Okay, more on that in a minute. Right, okay. If it is an essential ingredient, I think, to the relationship, to know that works. So, okay, so Chris, tell me a bit more about Chris. What does he do that is like meant that you've stuck around and worked so well together for these years?
So he, for a long time, headed up the private client team here. Right. He's actually just moved roles from being head of private client team to heading up the private wealth sector. So kind of more broadly looking at work we do for individuals as opposed to just the private client stuff. But he has always just been incredibly supportive, pushing me, nominating me for stuff, putting me forward, always believing in me. And that's been really fantastic. And at times when maybe I didn't believe in myself, he always did. So kind of having that support behind you. We joke now that he told me quite early on when I qualified that I needed to be more assertive. And we now joke that might not have been the right advice because I'm now quite a pain in his backside. But
for what you wish for, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's nice to be able to joke about that at your level of qualification, but what a wonderful trait to have kind of encouraged in someone else. And how do you pay that forward to future generations of people at the firm? Have you got youngsters that you kind of look out for and look after as well?
Definitely. I think it's really informed my own approach. Having had that incredible support from so early on in my career, I'm so keen to help provide that. So I suppose it's that, having learned that approach, I'm keen to continue it. So we've got a couple of juniors in the team, a trainee most of the time now, and I act as trainee supervisor. So kind of having that role is really important to me. I really enjoy it, and getting to help develop, newer members of the profession and kind of helping to, make the legal world a more kind of welcoming and supportive place. I think we're very good at that generally at M&R, but I think the legal profession as a whole has probably a little way to go still. But yeah, I think it's great having that role, being able to kind of feel like I'm influencing the next generation of lawyers, both from a kind of technical perspective and training people up on the sort of work that I do, but also, from a more holistic well-being, diversity perspective as well.
I think that private client lawyers seem to kind of rub along quite nicely as well as a group. Right? Outside of the firm, I saw some stuff that you posted about recently where you were talking about going to some events, not only at Chambers, but I think a couple of other places as well. And I think there's something about that part of the profession that means that people, you just understand it's a long game, and we like to be on the other side of things from each other at times as well when we're doing some planning work or probate work or whatever it might be as well. And I think there's something encouraging to see that kind of ethos being shared out there as well. Anyone else within the firm that you'd say has been inspiring, or that you look up to, or that you think I'd like to spend a bit more time working alongside?
Yeah, I think we've got so many incredible female partners, and I love seeing kind of their career trajectories and them balancing the work, the work alongside having a family. I think that's really inspirational. And obviously, a prime example of that is our managing partner, Claire Clark,
Yeah.
who has done incredible things with her career, with clients, but also raising a family as well. So that's definitely an inspiration for me. And being at a firm where it was spearheaded by a person who has done that makes me comfortable that I could also tread that path. And there are lots of people who have been before me who have done so.
Okay. What's the hardest lesson that you've learned then? What would you say is what's the hardest lesson you've learned?
So I think it would be the kind of trying to back away from my own perfectionism tendencies. So I've always kind of been quite a perfectionist and been concerned about the perception that others have of me, and wanting that to be kind of perfect and present this kind of whatever perfect exterior. So for me, when I started to have problems with my mental health a few years ago now, I kind of put up such a wall, and I was masking everything to outside. So actually trying to drop that and moving away from having to present that all the time has been quite a big step. But for me, kind of as I started to come out the other side of having problems with my mental health, I kind of realized that if me talking about it, despite the fact it being kind of uncomfortable for me, if I can talk about it and that helps even one other person to have conversations about it, or helps them feel like they're not so alone, then like that is definitely worth my own discomfort. And I think I kind of started to talk about colleagues a bit more about this, talking to our trainees, talking to juniors about kind of the pressures of being a lawyer and kind of all of the stuff that we had to do to look after ourselves while also looking after our clients. But then I think the turning point, and coming back to obviously LinkedIn, threw myself in the deep end a little bit with the Mental Health Awareness Week Swiftie series posts. So that was, quite an ordeal for me in a positive way and kind of uncomfortable way, in that, I felt like I was bearing my soul to the masses, and kind of dealing with, there was incredible support that came off of it. Like, don't get me wrong, but putting that side of myself out there on a platform like LinkedIn was quite a challenge. But actually, I'm so grateful to myself that I let that kind of perfection, not just having to use LinkedIn as a, here's an award I've won, like I got promoted, actually using that platform to broadcast kind of wider things and let that guard slip has actually been so beneficial. So the conversations that I've had with people about their own mental health, whether that be from kind of junior levels to some of the partners here, actually some of those conversations are so valuable and so important that I'm so happy that I did kind of back away from that perfectionism. And it's I suppose, it's a constant process, and I do catch myself in it from time to time. But I think that's definitely been a big lesson to learn.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably seen I've chronicled my struggles with it in the past as well. I had some really difficult times at one firm in particular on those lines, and again, I wouldn't. I don't think anyone would have called me a perfectionist necessarily, but they would have said that I pushed myself very hard at times as well, and I was hard on myself about being able to share it. But when I did, I realised on the other side of it was a new kind of perfect me, which is the one that included the whole of me. Like, it didn't matter that I was able to share that, and as you said, I think it allows people to pick up the phone to you, to get in touch with you, to share what's on their mind, and and prevent things getting worse as well. I think it's really important that we've got to talk honestly about that within the sector. Okay. Tell me a bit about that getting going on LinkedIn. I mean, you had your Swiftie series and your mental health week stuff, brilliant. But what was it that really prompted you to get going? Was it that started you off? Because
So it was a little bit earlier than that. So about this time last year, I was promoted to principal associate, and one of the partners in the team asked me to head up a kind of content generation initiative within the private client teams to try and make more noise on LinkedIn and generally, blogs, articles, webinars, that sort of thing. So for the last year, I've been kind of heading that up. We've been trying to get more legal content out there, whether that be kind of case updates or interesting things that happened in the press or popular culture, and kind of steering it into a legal concept. So I've been doing that for a little while now. And I think it kind of appeared to me at that time that I needed to work out how to actually broadcast that more widely, because it's all well and good if you're generating this content and it, you know, goes on our employee advocacy platform and people can share it on LinkedIn. But if people are sharing it and it's getting 3 likes from colleagues, you're not really actually, you know, what's it worth? So I think at that time I kind of decided to be a bit more active on LinkedIn generally. So that's kind of about this time last year. And then just over 3 months ago, when the last Linked Influencers Guide came out, I had read that, and it kind of came at the right time when I was trying to do a bit more. I'd started to open up a little bit more on LinkedIn about kind of not necessarily personal stuff, but, you know, I'm working remotely this week, here's a picture of my view, that sort of thing, rather than just the here's an article sort of posts. And so yeah, saw the guide, saw that Matt Skipper was in it, as you know, and was like,
Inevitably.
if Matt can do this, I can do this. No, you know, Matt's fantastic, like, so great on the BD stuff. But I was like, actually, you know, if he can be in this list by this guy side that I don't know, maybe I can be in this list too. And for me, it was like, maybe next time round I might get, you know, 90 something. So actually to come in and be at number 21, it's going to be a tough act to follow, to be honest. But it was really validating to actually see that the efforts I've been putting in on here have actually made such a difference.
The two of you that ranked from nowhere to highest in one quarter are you and Emma Mack from Clever Chats. I think you both had that kind of Damascene moment of just going, do you know what? I'm just going to do this. I read the report. Why not me? Right. And I love that we created a scenario where, I don't know if you know, but that's why we created the report. It wasn't supposed to be some, you know, league table of as such. It's supposed to be an inspiring point of, okay, I can do that, right? And I'm going to do it anyway. And it's also to show thousands of lawyers, there are lawyers out there already doing this. And I love the fact that you've become canon now. Like, you're part of your post can now be shown in our training materials. Like, it's okay to talk about these things this way. I think there was a day where I dared you to put Swiftie in your headline.
Yeah, and I did.
And here we are a few months later, and it's kind of going well. So yeah, that's good. Was there any okay? So you had the internal push within the department. We need to get more, maybe a bit more profile, a bit more content out there as well. Any other motivations behind that? I mean,
I think the firm's been keen to make more noise and just increase the firm profile and the firm brand. I think we have a tendency to be quite a modest and humble firm and not shout about our achievements. So we've been trying to change that. So I think that's kind of been one of the guiding principles. And I think for me, also just helping to solidify some of the connections that I've made. So again, coming back to the Swiftie series and the post on mental health, I think actually I've got all these connections that I've made over the last 10 years, but actually the conversations I'm having with people are on a completely different level now, rather than, you know, you busy? Yeah, I'm busy sort of conversation. It's actually, let's talk. And as we all know, people buy from people. So if you can make those connections with people and make deeper connections with people, you know, it can only work well.
do you find that you have an increased level of interactions with people maybe who are lurkers, who aren't the ones who comment and kind of like your posts as well? Do we see, I mean, you're nodding already, so I assume
Definitely.
that's in your experience.
Yeah, so I get a lot of people, particularly people I already know or people within the firm, will come up to me and say, "Oh, I really like your LinkedIn posts." It's like, well, you didn't like them actually on the platform, though, did you? But yeah, that's quite a good conversation starter. And yeah, I have had some really good conversations with various people about it who have been kind of LinkedIn lurkers.
What's next for you on there, do you think? What are you going to try and achieve over the next 12 weeks? Any thoughts?
Ooh.
I'm not talking about your content. I don't want to give away the secrets of what you're going to come up with, but any thoughts on format or what you might try differently?
Yeah, I think it's a tough act to follow after debuting at number 21 on the list. So just trying to keep it up and keep the motivation there, keep being engaged and sharing hopefully useful content. So just making sure I've got the balance right between, you know, sharing the legal content, which was the entire purpose behind making my initial kind of LinkedIn push, I suppose, and then the stuff that actually people seem to really engage with and really like, which is that more the soft skills or the side of being a lawyer that people don't necessarily shout about. So I think that's my kind of the plan that I've got to put in place over the next few weeks of how to kind of represent both sides of that, and, you know, making sure I'm, doing good things.
What if somebody doesn't follow you already, but has seen this video today, what can they expect if they come and follow you? What kind of content pillars do you kind of go back to time and again?
Yeah, so I'm trying to keep following up on the Swiftie series, so doing using Taylor Swift lyrics to showcase certain aspects of working life, whether that be mental health, well-being, work-life balance, all that sort of thing. So definitely kind of keeping that going. I did originally think that maybe people would get quite tired of it, but just I keep rolling them out, people keep engaging with it. So I'm going to keep going as long as people are interested. And then I suppose at the same time, to say the legal content that we need to share in order to show that we know what we're talking about. So just getting that balance right. And then I suppose just general life of being a lawyer, what I've been up to, what events I've been to, things like that. So a bit of a mix of different stuff.
So Taylor Swift, technical knowledge, and kind of life of as a lawyer. I really like that. I think that's I think you also share things about the firm's been up to as well a bit as well. There's a
Yeah.
bit of so some lovely content pillars, and probably the kind of ones that we'd encourage people who were going to start out on their journey to have some idea of what they were doing. I think the idea of arriving each morning and not knowing what you're going to post about is a bit frightening. But I think you gave me a sneak peek once of a screenshot of your notes app as well. I think we're both notes appers, aren't we? Right? So
Yeah, definitely notes app. My notes app is just ridiculous with ideas, and like Helen Vanessa said on Ep2, just half-formed ideas of bits and bobs that you now then can't remember what it was you were talking about. But definitely, I've definitely tried to have a bit more of a plan, because I was at first a person who would just wake up in the morning and be like, oh right, okay, what am I going to post today? So trying to plan it out a bit more, making sure I've got that right balance between different things. Some of the posts do take quite a long time to write, so kind of making sure you're planning that in advance, working that into the working day, making sure the client work's still getting done while doing the LinkedIn thing.
that's good. Helen encouraged me to use Bear, just in case anybody else is listening and they want a different inspiration as to where to record that information. Bear is a really good way of kind of formatting that as well, and it kind of prompts you with the right kind of prompts. I'm sure there are other options available as well. Any last question? Anyone in particular that you would recommend? So I'm coming into the legal sector. I'm in the legal sector. Who should I be following? Who's worth listening out for?
Well, Simon Marshall, obviously.
Oh, that guy. No, ignore him. Whatever you do, unfollow.
Definitely people like Jen Shipley,
Yeah.
John Gregson, Sophie
Yeah.
Wardell. They're the kind of the key people that I started following early on. It's been great to actually connect with them and get to know them a bit better. And there are probably loads of other people that I should recommend that I can't now think of the top of my head.
Those are all great examples, aren't they? I think that Jen has this amazing ability to inspire kind of future lawyers, and she consistently
Yeah.
speaks. That's one of her kind of content pillars. She's very generous with her own kind of life events and things as well. And I think is an amazing woman. John, I know as a friend and as a colleague as well, and he's clearly come on a bit of a journey over the last 12, 18 months as well. And I think he does that amazing thing of balancing both humor and kind of technical updates. It's not very easy to do that, to get that right all the time. And I love the fact that whereas you use the Taylor Swift thing to do it instead, I think John uses kind of his sense of humor, as it were, as well. And I think finding their own voices, each of those individuals you've named, Sophie, is just out and out cares about people. And you can tell that's why she's in HR. And I think that each of those people you'd say has got a different style from each other, but they found their way of doing it. And I think that's the most important thing.
Definitely.
So we're going to have some big shindig at some point, I think, for the linked influencers and get together.
Oh,
and I assume that we can ask you to be there. You're going to come along.
of course.
Wonderful. Listen, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation. And maybe there'll be a chance to come back and share some more information another time as well. Good luck for the quarter ahead.
Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for dialing in. Cheers. Bye.